And it's April 13th, 2023, and this is Woodturners Weekly Coffee Hour number 147. And it's, let me see, I'm seeing 37 on screen. We usually get up in the high 40s before we're done here. The next Lancaster Club meeting is it the 4th of May? It's the first Tuesday in May. I think that's the 4th. May the 2nd. It's the next Lancaster Club meeting, and I'll be the demo. I'm going to demo magnet boxes. And I might a little bit later in this hour show you some of the things I'm going to talk about as kind of a teaser. And after Saturday after that will be Lancaster Open Shop, and there we got a committee now working to assess what we need to equip each of the 4 turning stations to be complete enough for anybody to make whatever they want, pretty much. And they're coming. They've got a list of what they want now, and the next thing is to source it and put prices on it, and then we'll see how far the Treasury will go, and then we'll see what kind of money we have to raise. So it's an interesting process, but what we're really doing is equipping that shop so that it's going to be of general use to the club, to our club, and other visitors as well. Dunbar, good morning. Nice to see you today. Let me see. Today's a show and tell, of course. You see the hands going up. I've got some stuff I'd like to show you. I think I'm going to go to that right now first, and it gets me out of the way. But what I have to do that is a small bit of messing around. I have to turn off my virtual background so that I can go over to this camera, and then I can show this slideshow. Okay. That is a chalice, and you guys seeing that?
Yep.
I got to get rid of this. Okay, that's a chalice and goblet or chalice and paten that I made a few years ago out of pear wood. Well, this goes back to our discussions of reaction wood. Pear wood has some mature pear often has a red streak around the heartwood and in other places, and you can see in the goblet the red streak looks like almost a crown of thorns. But I did give this to a practicing pastor I know, and as far as I know, she uses it in regular services as a chalice and paten. So it's heart of pears, what I call that one. And these are 3 more pear pieces that were all made to work with reaction wood. Now, pear has very subtle figure, and I usually use pear when I want to make something and work with the form. So I'm using the subtle figure instead. These are just turned to try and bring out the feather figure and a little bit of bark and see what happens to the shape. And they're all pretty badly warped, but I'm quite happy with these bowls. Are you still seeing the pictures? Am I getting this right?
Yep.
Yep. Okay.
That looks good.
And this is an illustration I made some years ago to answer the question of, okay, which way around was that in the tree? These are 2 walnut blanks taken out of the same place, the other in the trunk, and there's one half of the trunk there showing where one of them came out. One was turned barkways, and you can see what happens to the ring patterns in the bark edge piece. They turn into ovals in the bottom of the bowl, and the other was turned the other way around, and you can see what happens to the wood figure then. It turns into a really hyperbola shapes or different shapes that are not ovals. So it's really which way you orient the piece has everything to do with what it's going to look like. And in woods like walnut with prominent figure, you can play with that a lot, or at least I do. I've enjoyed that process a whole bunch. And I wanted to show this a couple of weeks ago when I couldn't get it up to when we were having those discussions. Here's the same illustration, a different photograph showing making the same point. One piece of wood was one way and one was the other in that out of the log.
Hey, John, in the previous one, previous to that one, was the pith still on the side of the one bowl?
The log of the pith is out of this log, and the pith is out of
the next one.
Yeah, there's no pith in either one of these.
Okay.
Yeah. And here's another attempt to illustrate the same point with these are cherry. One bowl turned from one way in the half log, and one turned the other way, and this is where the natural edge comes from. I'd never turned natural edge until fairly recently, and I really didn't understand how it arose at all, but nor how you keep the bark on. But it turns out to be relatively easy to do. And anyway, that's what you get when you do that. That's the end of that sequence. I also have here Mark Skinner, are you on today? I see you there someplace. You got your mallet. You want to talk about your
I'm
mallet?
here. Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, let me see if I can get to your mallet. Okay.
Yeah. So as you can see, I off-center turn the handles.
Yeah, there's your markings for off-center turning.
Yeah.
Let's show them. There's the two mallets.
Yeah.
And I really like those. I'm going to make one myself because I need a mallet that is non-magnetic for working with magnets. There's another view of the mallets. Why did you offset the handle in the one on the, or is that the photographic artifact? It looks like the handle is not centered on the head.
It's a photographic artifact.
Photographic artifact. Okay. Close up photographs.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're locust heads and cherry handles. And I've used them a couple times and they work really well. So you hit something with it, it stays hit.
I don't know why computer's doing that. Okay, I'm going to go back to over here. Yeah, I've got some magnet boxes I can show as well, since I've got your attention and I got this off. I'm going to go to here. This is where I began with making magnet boxes. This is the Sphericon box. You know, one of those things that like, yeah, it's a Sphericon. And it's hollow like a box, and it has one pair of magnets and that closes it pretty nice and tight. What I don't like about this is the two magnets in this location, they gather gunk and they become the thing you see when you open the box. So it makes more of the magnet than I want to make. So I set out to figure out, okay, how can I conceal the magnets? And I spent a lot of time making 3-part blanks. This is a box made with a 3-part blank out of ash. You can actually see the glue lines there where there's a top part, a center part, and a bottom part. The center part is bored both sides, and it's all glued together and then parted in between the magnets, and then turn the box. And if you're careful and lucky, you don't turn into the magnets. But I made a lot of these over the years, and I got some ones that are pretty good, but I also got quite a few rejects. The reject rate is about 50% because you're going to cut into the magnets without knowing it. So it's a good technique for concealing the magnets, but it's also high risk, and it has a very high screw up factor in it. So then the thing where I've come to most recently is it took me 6 years to realize this. Instead of having the magnets facing this way, they can face this way. So here's a bottle. You can see there's a magnet there. Now, I don't have any problem with these magnets because they are not in your face the way they were in the face grain and the other piece. So this is very satisfying. It closes down and it's very tight and pulls off, or you twist it off. So I'm pretty happy with that design. And that led me over to this design, which this is what I'm going to demo, and I've made quite a few of these. This is a small pocket box. And it has 3 1/8-inch magnets set in the wall with mating magnets on the inside, so that it holds together. Little twist opens it and closes it together in a very satisfying way. So that's where I've got to in 6 years of magnets. I don't understand why it took me 6 years to figure out that, oh, they don't have to be like this. They can be like this. It was like, huh, how come I didn't figure that out 6 years ago? I don't know. But anyway, that's how it works with these things. So that's me for today. Any questions or comments?
Hey, John, if you hit a magnet with a chisel, does a magnet fracture pretty easy, or is it tough metal?
No, they're not tough at all. They're very hard and brittle. Part of the strategy with these things is you want to be sure that the magnets themselves don't scrape or bang together. Otherwise, they are going to chip sooner or later. That's part of the trick, is to get them just inside the wood. From a magnet's point of view, wood and air are the same. You can have wood in between or air in between, and it won't diminish the strength at all. But they do chip if you bang them together. And if you let them bang together or play with them, I had a bunch of things I was making with round ones, spherical ones. They bang together pretty nicely, and it doesn't take very long before they're really battered up. And then they leave bits of themselves all over the place, and they really make a mess.
Hey, John, remind us where you get your magnets.
I go to a place called K&J Magnetics, and they're a Pennsylvania company. KJmagnetics.com will find them. They're more expensive than Amazon, but they have many more sizes and they're very good quality, and they arrive real fast.
Have
And
you ever?
my biggest mistake in buying magnets is not buying enough at a time. Let me see if I can get my camera back.
I have
The
a
biggest
question.
problem I have with magnets is not buying enough at a time. I figure, oh, 12 is plenty. But some of these boxes use 12 or 16 magnets. So now I buy like 4 or 5 dozen at a time.
Have you ever just used metal on one side and the magnet on the other?
Doesn't pull as hard.
Okay.
And you don't get the some of the things I've played with a lot is using the opposing the magnets, the same poles together, so they repel. That's not going to happen with metal. And I had a conversation with Angelo yesterday about some of his magic illusions. He has some where he used the magnet on one side against a piece of wire. And so that means it grabs all the way around. But what he wants it to do is grab and align the grain. So that way, to have that happen, you just need a magnet on magnet. But I found when you just use metal as one side of it, it doesn't have enough grab. When I made a bunch of icosahedrons and other platonic solids with ball bearings and magnets in the rods, it doesn't hold together. You got to have it's got to be magnet to magnet for good holding power. Anyway, that'll be on May 2nd. I'm going to tell you all about what I've learned and how I've done it with a lot of props, and I'm going to show a bunch of mistakes as well.
Hey, John, could you make a box where if you oriented the magnets right, it would reject the lid when you try to put it on?
Yeah, I've got some of those I'm going to show you at the club meeting. Yeah,
Great.
you could try and force the grain to align that way. You know, when the grain's aligned between the bottom and the lid, it'll grab. Any other place you put it, it tries to pop it off. It's not as slick as you'd like it to be. It's not as magic as you want, but it's a good effect. You know, and people find it quite disconcerting to try and put the lid on and it just won't go.
Have you tried doing any segmented boxes like that on the side so that you can hide the magnets and still drill the holes like you like to do?
I have not tried that. That may be what comes next. Angelo was talking about inlaying a ring of ebony to conceal many magnets, and we'll see how that goes. I'm not up to that yet. I'm still in making them work. I actually like them in these little sideways boxes. I find them quite decorative, and what I might do instead is alternate between each magnet. These are 3 magnets, so in between I might put a rhinestone or some other little ebony dot, so it just becomes part of a decorative effect.
Yeah, I have. You can get small pieces of stone of any type. You could even cover the magnet if you wanted to. So that's another thing. So they look good.
Yes, you could. When you get them, I want them to all be very close together. So if they're buried and if I try and cover this in here, I'm going to wind up with the magnet being too far away from its mating surface, or the wall too thick. I'm trying to make these to be little delicate things, you know, so that I can really make a nice little thing without the problem with burying magnets in the wood is you want it with a lot of wood to hide the magnets, and the boxes get clunky. So
I wasn't thinking about the inside magnet. I was just thinking about the outside magnet, making that covering that, not the inside. I think the inside looks fine, to be honest. And I like the outside on those too, but
this has a little divot here where the magnet is, and I could very well inlay a piece of wood in there. But I kind of like it. I like the look of it, so I'm probably not going to. But one certainly could.
Yeah, the other thing you could think about are the mother of pearl dots they use in guitar making.
Yes, that would call more attention to it rather than less.
Right.
But I might alternate mother of pearl dots.
Make it a feature, right?
Yeah, you make it a feature, absolutely. Yeah.
John, what wall thickness do you have in your boxes where you put the magnet in the outside wall, for example? Yeah.
These are 1/8. This little box is 1/8.
And the magnet is a little bit shorter or the same length?
Well, the magnet is 1/8. Actually, the box is probably 1/32 more.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Hey, John,
if you can get yourself an old piano, like a lot of people get rid of their old pianos because they're too heavy and nobody wants them anymore, and you salvage the ivory off the keys. It's about a 64th of an inch thick, but it is ivory, and you cut little discs. That would be a perfect application. I did that once. I've got a bunch of ivory slivers, and that's a perfect application for it. Thanks, John.
And you can usually buy those slivers of ivory at flea markets. Actually, there's some guy at the flea market will have piano keys or ivories from piano keys. I've seen them quite a few times, and that's a good idea. I'm going to look for some of that.
John, curious how you align the 3 holes so that they match on both sides. Do you drill through, or how do you do that?
I'll show you that. You're going to have to wait for my demo for that, because I'm going to show you that in
Okay.
detail. But the short of it is, you make the box a tight fit. You use the tool rest and the indexing wheel to do your layout lines. Drill through both parts at once, so with a fixture on the drill press, and clamp the workpiece. Then that'll work. And but I'll demo that.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, John, here, I have these 2 triangle pieces that fit together a certain way and form a pyramid.
Yeah.
And they fall around on my desk, and I'm always there trying to figure out which they go. I think I'm going to bury 2 magnets in it, and then it'll automatically go together.
No, that's right. I've made those, and that's a nice way to do that. Make that puzzle work. I'll show you. I'm going to show you some of things like that at the club meeting as well. Okay. Moving on. I got to see a bunch of hands here. It is a show and tell morning. And if you're new here and you haven't shown us work of what you do, we'd like to meet you. We'd like you to show us some work. It doesn't matter if it's beginner or advanced or whatever. We're just curious to know who you are and what your relationship to woodworking and your lathe is. So if you haven't shown any work and you've been coming to this thing for a while, get some pictures together, get some work together. You can email me the pictures and I'll show them from here, or you can show them you can wrestle with share screen, or you can hold the work up. All of those things work. Oh, Bowman, we jumped over you last week. What do you have this week?
I have 3 bowls to show. I'll show you them physically, and then I have pictures of them.
You got to quit waving them around, or you got to quit waving them around because your background.
Yeah, I'll show the pictures. That'll save it. And then one. Let me just go to the pictures. This is ridiculous.
Go to the pictures or turn off your background. It's one of the other.
Well, let me go. I can't turn off the background. You don't want to see it. Trust me. I'll start here. And let's get them big. There we go. That is the reverse order. There's the profile. What this was a London plane that I cored when Doug loaned me his coring stuff, and I managed to cut through the bottom. So Mr. funnel guy here just couldn't let it go. So I turned it out and put a walnut foot on it, and I elevated it just for the fun of it. So then I don't know if you guys ever do this, end up stacking your turnings and go, hey, they look kind of cool together. And I just happened to stack these 2 and said, whoa, that looks like fun. So this is, my brother-in-law's in Phoenix, Arizona, and we went for a midwinter vacation. And I ended up picking a bunch of what might be called, I'm assuming, palm tree bark. You know how their leaves grow over and then that dries and drops off. Well, it's very barky, meaning it's very coarse and soft. But I buried it in some epoxy. When I turned it, I discovered that the best way to do it is to soak it with thin CA glue before you sand it, and then it sands nicely. But this one, again, I put on a foot. This is actually the common name is Brazilian teak. I think it's free toe or something like. One of you guys probably know it. I happen to have a couple blanks that I got years ago. Doug and I went and raided and bought out all of Middletown Lumber's blanks. They had a lot of exotic wood. It wasn't selling, so Doug and I walked away with a ton of it in our van and split it up. And I had grabbed one of them off of my shelf to put a foot on this one.
Now, did you dye that a little bit blue, but not bright blue?
No, it's epoxy.
It's not colored. That's just its native color.
That's right. I did not do anything to Here, let me go back. Sorry.
Because that's a nice color. I mean, that's a lot nicer than the bright blue that sometimes shows up in these
I'm
things.
sorry. Yeah.
No, it plays very well against the wood. It's a good, very well modulated color contrast.
Yeah, and I'm trying to get back to it, and my okay, I'm gonna have to escape out.
Well, we see it here.
Okay.
Yeah.
What can you go forward with?
The right and left arrow keys a lot of help you out.
Apparently I'm locked because it won't let me do anything now.
Okay, then I'm going to kill your
I'm gonna
share.
stop the share and I'm gonna start again.
Okay. I'm gonna
Apparently it locked up, so see if it'll let me. Yeah, it'll let me go now. Let me go back there a second. That's a very lightly tinted epoxy, but I did not put anything on the wood, on the bark. But what you're seeing is some overlay on it. I mean, the epoxy adding some blue, but you also see that the epoxy did not want to adhere to the bark very well. And I did not seal that because I was hoping the epoxy would soak in and really seal it, but the reverse has happened, and particularly on the bark, the outer edge of the bark right in here. So yeah, I learned. I don't know if I'll do it again, but it was kind of fun. Well, I had some epoxy left over, and epoxy's too blooming expensive to dump out in the trash bin. So I grabbed another funnel of mine, and I think this is London plain. I had cored through the bottom, and so I threw it in a pot and put the rest of the epoxy in it, and then I turned it later after it had set up. So I only needed to use like 3/4 of an inch or something like that. So those are that. Doug, you prompted me last week. I think it was Doug last week. I think it was showing off his platters. This is a London plain pattern, a platter. I think this is feathering. Would you guys agree with that? I didn't think I had any from a crotch, but maybe I did. But as you guys know, somebody mentioned there's a high tension within sycamore species. London plain is a cross between American and I forget what the other one, Oriental or whatever. But I just couldn't give it up, so I clamped it down and swept some of the dust in it, clamped it down to flatten it so that it lined right, and then put epoxy in it. And I thought, well, if I start turning it flies apart, it does. But it didn't, and it has a nice curl. I love it. I could not put it on the lathe. So I actually inverted it and ran it through my drum sander to flatten the bottom. And then I just hand sanded with my orbital sander inside here and on the backside. So yeah, kind of fun. I was very pleased. I think I put walnut oil on this one. Anything that has epoxy gets Odie's oil. That's my favorite. So that's it. That's what I got.
Questions for Jim? Comments for Jim?
So why couldn't you put that on the lathe?
It was so warped. It was wonky all over the place. I mean, if I'd have put it on with the bottom that was there, it would have just went like that on the lathe. And by the time I turned it down to flat, I didn't leave it large enough when I first turned it. It would have just gone too thin. I mean, it would have literally not. There was not enough overlap in the wobbles to let it straighten out. So, yeah, I discovered that orbital sander can work very well laying on a workbench. So.
Never let the wood win.
Well,
I thought the right answer is always let the wood win.
I was thinking the wood always wins, but that's okay.
Exactly right.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of conversation about epoxy and wood, and guys get all bent, especially beginners, get all bent out of shape about what kind of finish to use. Do you have to sand it to 2000? And my theory is this: do you want the wood to look like plastic or glass, or do you want the glass to look like wood? To me, I defer to the wood. I prefer to see the wood. I want to turn through to the wood, and I want to finish it so the wood looks good. So yeah, that's I'm ready to get back.
Shiny sells.
What?
Shiny always sells. Shiny always sells.
Shiny.
Yeah,
always-
and
yeah,
that's
that's
probably
it.
why I'm not selling, because I don't shiny. Although I have a neighbor who comes over whenever she needs a wedding gift. She always buys my epoxy stuff. She always does. So I don't know what that means, but
Jim, I don't.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about. However, I would say that I've used my Beal polisher, and when you use Beal polish on finish, the wood comes out with a beautiful gloss on it. Even though I haven't put any other wax or anything, I can get it down to almost a mirror finish without any without any epoxy or anything like that. So and that's just the natural wood shining as opposed to whatever. So saying that wood is gray is like, that's what we're used to seeing, but it can be made shiny without any finishes.
That's
Have any of
true.
you guys ever used Hampshire grit or whatever? I'm going to try that. So
The BL system is very good for it's nicely calibrated for working with wood. That's for sure.
I don't understand what it is.
An epoxy wood composite, Jim, I use Triple E, which is similar to the Beal. It's a grit based finish, and then I usually follow that with their Sheila wax, which is a shellac based product on top of that. And I find that I don't have to. In fact, probably is not better to sand better than about 600 or 800 grit, and then go from there with those finishes, and you get really glass-like finish on the epoxy and the wood as a composite.
I found that those finishes were very hard to buy because they would come open in the mail and they didn't keep very long before they went hard in the jar.
I haven't had any problem with them going hard, and I've had mine quite a while actually.
Maybe it's just my sloppy lid putting on. Maybe
I've used Axe paste lately, and I really like that a lot. Plus, it's Pennsylvania, it's local, so I kind of support him. And whenever it does get kind of chunky and hard, I put a little bit of mineral oil in it and mix it back up. And I had a jar break when I dropped it, and all I did is put it in a new jar, and it softened up. Not perfect, but usable.
What was that, Ken?
It's Axe Paste, ACKS, I think. I'll put a link in the discussion.
If you would, yeah, that'd be great.
Is there
I'm going to move it along, Jim.
Huh? Is there crumb on? No, just on the finishes. He uses wipe on poly. He puts a coat of wax on, wipes it off, and puts another coat of poly on wipe on. That doesn't make sense to me. I don't know why it works, but I guess it works. So I'm done.
What I do is a light spray lacquer, buff it off while it's wet, so it's down in the pores, but there's hardly any on there, and then go to the BL system and polish that up, and that works pretty good.
Yeah, I don't understand urethane over wax. That doesn't make sense to me.
Nothing over wax makes sense.
Black is a nice universal mix from going from one to another, but I've never heard of. I would guess that the urethane may even take away the wax, but I don't know. That's a weird.
I think it has to dissolve the wax or it won't adhere.
That's what he says it does, and he only has 2 waxes that work. One is Howard Citrus or whatever. I happen to have that, but I'm not going to try it because it's against the principle of what I think should work.
So. I'm going to move us along here then. Carl Litzka, what are you going to show us today?
I'll try and be brief, but this is kind of for Kai. I don't know if you can see the purple. Last week we were talking about automotive finishes. I'll try to hold it still.
You got
automotive finishes, and I use the automotive clear coat because it has the ultraviolet protector in it. And we have a lot of cedar. In fact, there's a lot of cedar in our acreage here, and I love the purple, but it won't stay long. And I hope that helps you, Kai. And last week, I didn't want to interrupt, but you were complaining or commenting that the feathering in your piece and the crotch piece you turned had disappeared. And it's, I don't want to tell people that I have the answers, but to me, it was obvious you turned the wrong side. The feathering would have to be on the bottom, which is understandable. Because what happens is when you turn it and the feathering's on the what I would call the top, you actually just ends up on the floor in sawdust, and you get rid of the other wood and leave the feathering on the bottom. And I'm very reluctant to make rules and regulations because you know wood turning. And I also looked up where you live in Germany. I have relatives there. Okay, guys, thank you. Bye.
Okay, thank you for the tips. So if you turn something to keep the feathering, you have the outside of the tree pointing up, and that's where you slightly hollow then to make a platter or something. Is that right?
Yeah, and if you don't have to. The other thing, you don't have to have the blank parallel to the pith. You can tilt it a bit to capture the feather, and then design your bowl so the feather goes down the wall of the bowl. You can do that. It's just not, you just have to be really aware of where it is and what you're doing.
I think there's another part too, and that is sometimes people think that they've turned the outside of the bowl and they want to make it this deep. The answer is you make it as deep as shows up the feather the best, and then you make the wall thickness after you've decided on the depth of the feather rather than before.
Yeah. Okay,
I agree. That's perfect.
Yeah. Most bowls I turned so far were just the trunk kind of cut in the middle so that I cut through the pith, and then I took the two pieces, and the maximum volume bowl you get if you have the kind of the inside of the tree pointing up and the bark side pointing down where the foot is. And that's the principle I stick to. But if it doesn't apply to feather, I will try the other way around and see if I can keep more of the feathering this way. Thanks a lot for the tip then.
In the pictures I showed you of my own earlier work of trying to illustrate that point, I found it very helpful to have a stack of logs and to really go for trying to understand where the feather was and where it wasn't and what kind of shapes I needed to turn to display it or to minimize it or to have it show up where I wanted to. It was very much worth spending a week at that one time.
Okay, interesting discussion.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to come back to you, Kai. I want to go to Rich Colvin first. Rich, what do you have today?
I have a piece that I made for my wife, and it's we had to make a piece for our contest for the club, which is make a piece with a lid is what it said.
See if you can share your screen. Yeah, there we go. Good.
So this is Brazilian blackwood, and I think this is a yellow heart, but it may be mulberry. I'm not quite sure. But I turned this on my ornamental rose engine lathe, and including this, it looks like knurling on the bottom was done there too. I was pleased to finally be able to make that. And the reason you see the color in the middle is this is the top. I have two hearts there that I put into it.
How do you get your rose engine lathe to do that spiral that we saw on the side view?
So it's a feature that we just announced on the MDF Rose Engine, and we actually have the ability to take this rosette and we can turn the rosette's design helically as you go down the piece. So this is actually turned 90 degrees. I have one I'm doing that's 180 degrees of turn while we're cutting it. And I have some videos I can show of cutting. It's very slow. The final cut from this piece, which is about 6 inches high, it took 4.5 hours.
Wow. So that lathe like kind of running on autopilot the whole time?
We use stepper motors to control the movement where instead of linkages. So all we've done is use stepper motors instead of mechanical linkages. But it's not a CNC by any means. And then the lid is threaded, which I did the threading on my rose engine lathe also. And then you can see somewhat the design that I put into the lid there. into the base of the lid or the top of the lid.
And how does that work? Is there some kind of a cutter that goes down in there?
Yeah, I do. I use a cutter to reach into there and make that cut.
You're going to have to show us some slides of this thing in action. I mean, I hear about this and I don't get it yet.
I have a video of making on YouTube of making this knurling at the bottom. I'm actually, I'll just bring it up real quick. I'm not going to play it, but
be able to play from YouTube. It doesn't work.
No, I'm just going to show you where the video is. But I had just made this video. It's not coming up well. But if you look on my channel, I made one about making a pattern that it's typical like on watch faces, but I wrapped it around a cylinder. So it's got like 3 hash marks at 45 degrees and then 3 more turn 90 degrees from that. So
maybe you could put a link in the chat so we could find a video. Or something. Every time one of you ornamental guys comes on and starts to talk about this, my head starts to explode.
But I was pleased. My wife was very happy with that, and she's the end customer. I guess that's all that really matters, right?
That's a nice piece. It's a good design. Is that it from you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, Rich. Barry, you're another spiral guy. What do you got today?
Yeah. Today I got nothing to do with spiral. I got going back to your magnetic boxes. I made this. Well,
we got you. I got you. Yeah, the speaker view's got you. We can see it. Oh, that's nice. Now, where's the magnets in that?
What's unique about it is it's been bandsawed on a. I don't know if you can.
You got to, yeah, there.
It's been bandsawed on an 8-inch radius down through the center, so that when assembled, the magnet holds it pretty tight. Maybe if I do my reverse camera,
now bring in the other piece. Let's see the other piece too. The mating piece. There we go. So one plug goes right inside the other socket. That's nice. That's a nice design.
But when you run the radius bandsaw through it, you lose interlockability, if you will, as far as alignment. And so I had to. The reason there's this epoxy, or it's actually a lacquer covering a drill hole, is because I had to drill into it and insert a spud so that it had something to align with. And what's neat is that, when it's closed, it closes nice and tight, but you can't really pull it apart readily because the magnets are fairly powerful. And so by rotating it, that bandsaw curve, kind of separates you can see the gap forming there. And it pulls them far enough apart so they come cleanly apart.
That's a very nice design. I'm proud of you.
The downside is I made it expressly for carrying hearing aid batteries. And let me tell people now, do not allow hearing aid batteries to make contact for more than a few minutes with magnets.
It'll drain them right out, won't it?
It drained them completely. I went to use them. They were in there, I guess, about 3 days, and I took them out to use them, and they had no power whatsoever, not even a hint.
No, they weren't touching the magnets. They were just inside the magnetic field. Is that right?
They would stick when you'd open the magnetic attraction. When you'd open the box, it created an avenue for the magnet to attract the hearing aid to it. On the plus side, you didn't lose your hearing aid. When you opened it up, you knew where they were. They were stuck to the magnet. But even without direct metal-to-metal contact, they drained the batteries. And I looked online, and most of the references are to cell phones, and it says a magnetic field has absolutely no effect on a battery life. But they're talking about cell phones, and they're speaking about magnetic fields that paranoid people fear about damaging the batteries or something. But you put the battery right close to a magnet, you're getting more than just a magnetic field. You just, I don't know how that happens, but it just drains it completely in a matter of days.
That's very surprising.
You don't want to hold that near your pacemaker, right?
What's that, Jim?
You don't want to hold those magnets near your pacemaker if you have one.
Well, I think there you may have enough separation.
Okay.
When I once handled a neodymium magnet that was 2 inches in diameter and about a 2-inch length, and it had thousands of pounds of separating force. And I didn't know what I was doing, and I held it too close to a cast iron base that was meant to attract it, but not freehand. And it sucked the thing right out of my hand and shattered the neodymium magnet into 2 major shards and 100,000 little tiny shards. And it was a multi-$1,000 magnet.
You're kind of lucky your hand wasn't in the way there, because it would have smashed your hand to smithereens.
No, but it did cut my hand when it sucked it in so fast, and when it shattered, pieces came out, and I was foolishly carrying one of the shards in my pants pocket just to show somebody, and walked by a government metal desk, and the attraction put a cut right through my pants. The sharp edge of the magnet cut through my pants and caused a Gauss effect on a co-worker's computer. I was like a walking hazard for about 3 hours.
Oh, that's a great story.
You need leather pants pockets. That's what you need, Barry.
That's right.
Yeah.
Any
As
more
I
from you,
walked by
Barry?
the metal, the magnet stuck fast, and it was acting like a knife blade, just shearing across. It was a good pair of pants too, and it cut about a 3-inch slash in my pocket.
I've had some nasty experiences with some large magnets, not like you're talking about, but still bar magnets this sort of size, grabbing the web of my thumb and in other places, pinching skin, and boy, do they hurt.
Now they can be pretty treacherous at close range.
Yeah.
And they grab them, they snatch out of your hand so fast, there's no such thing as almost close range.
No. The ones I'm using are all 3/16 in diameter and 1/8 of an inch in diameter, and never any longer than a 1/4 inch. So they don't have that kind of power. But yeah. Okay, Kai, you're moved now.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Last time Jim asked about tippy tops that were bigger than those that I showed, and I said I've got a video about a bigger one that I made, and that's what I want to share with you. It's about a little bit more than a minute. Just get the share. So I start that.
Yep.
So you need a string to start it, because it's too heavy to do it with just your fingers. And that's an old shoelace. And the string needs to be tightly wrapped around the stem of the tippy top.
Why is the string double strand and not single strand?
Yeah, you will see. And then you take the 2 ends that you have and pull them in different directions. And that gives the spin you need.
to make one of those. That's my size.
Okay, I think you could even make them bigger, but that at the time was the biggest piece of solid wood I had. If you glue pieces together, it should be possible to make bigger tops and start them in a similar way.
Now, is that still drilled down inside the way you did the small ones, the same design?
The smaller ones were one piece, and this one was drilled in. So they are two separate pieces, the stem and the main body, and I hollowed out the main body, and then I drilled a hole in and I glued the stem in. Another reason for that was the stem is hardwood beech, and the body is a softer wood, I think fir or something like that. I didn't have a big beech piece to make it in one piece. So as it kind of turns on the stem later on, it's nice to have a harder wood for the stem, and with the main body it doesn't matter that much.
So Kai, what you're saying for Jim's sake is you could make a hole in the bottom and fill it with the stem, is what you're saying.
Well, I didn't drill all the way through.
Just joking.
But you could drill all the way through and then return it to the lathe and then round it nicely. That should still work, yeah.
Hey, Jen, you guys.
Roughly, what was your diameter?
About 4 inches.
Thank you.
That's Don. That's almost the size of a bocce ball. So, any of you guys shoot clays? I just got to thinking the launcher, the hand launcher, not the powered one, the hand launcher. Wonder if you could launch these big tippy toppies with the hand launcher, but not throwing it, but just pulling it back and letting it throw it out. You would need to put a string on it. So
yeah,
crazy.
Well, experiment with tippy tops, and let's talk about what you found out. In another morning coffee hour will be interesting.
As soon as I get done making props for my demo, I'm going to try to make some tippy tops. I really enjoyed the video last week and seeing this one as well. It's really excellent stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Right. That's it.
Randy, you had your hand up, and I was curious as to how your meeting went the other night with people showing their decorative stuff. What do you got?
Well, I'm going to try this, and it may not work. So hang on and see if I can do this.
This was from the Susquehanna meeting on Tuesday night this week.
This was the Susquehanna meeting on Tuesday night. We had a gentleman who brought this ball in. Can you see that?
Yeah.
The wow factor on that was just out of sight.
What is going on there? What is going on? Is that like?
He has LED lights on there. I'm going to stop the share. He had LED lights on there, stars around the center of the ball. And then he had, it wasn't real visible, but it said celebrate around between the stars.
So the lights were inside the ball behind epoxy or something like that?
Yes.
I think he said he had 60 some in there. Is that right, Randy?
There were lots of them. They went all the way around.
Yeah.
And of course it was powered by.
So he had a micro processor which could make him blink, right, or something like that.
I'm not sure.
And was it plugged in or battery powered?
He had it plugged in.
And
so,
and
like a USB wall wart.
So the theme was decorative effects and embellishment. So what else showed up?
Well, there were quite a few things. I got pictures of most everything that was brought.
Can you show us?
I'm going to try to post those on our website.
Could you show them now?
Yeah, I guess I could. Hang on a minute. Let me see if I can.
Hey, John, while he's doing that, this guy plans to have that globe rotate, but he's having some issues with the round contact. He has to have a contact plate to keep the lights powered as it rotates. So he says it's a work in process. So
that's why I asked about batteries, because if it's the battery could be completely inside it, then that wouldn't be an issue if it's enough battery. And you can recharge it,
that's a good
USB
point.
socket, plug it in and charge.
Let me see if I can do a share screen here.
Yeah, try and do that, Randy. I'd like to see. Here you go. Okay.
This was one brought in with a Celtic knot in the bottom of it.
And that's pyrography or inlaid?
I believe it was.
It looks like pyrography with the wood grain going right through it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the rim is dyed.
Let's see. I did some of these. Not all of these were, in fact. Now this one was. I don't know if I can make that brighter or not. Or if the next one is brighter.
That looks like inlay again, or is that epoxy again around there?
That was epoxy with some kind of material in it. Let's see if I can see. I took pictures of everything. Apple Spectraply. Oh, it's an apple wool with Spectraply.
Huh.
And let's see if I can get this up. This was rather interesting. I haven't even gone through these pictures yet. Band is leather cord.
Huh.
It's a leather cord and an inlay of a mica powder, I believe.
I would think that apple wood and epoxy wouldn't be a good combo because apple moves a lot.
Well,
we guess you'll ultimately find out.
This was an impressive piece.
Very.
This was a Celtic cross and a braid going around it. Who did this?
Bill Gray.
Bill Gray. And I did take two different pictures of it. This is another Bill Gray. This is painted and probably about 4 or 5 inches across.
Nice little piece. Do you know how he got that effect with paint? It looks like he kind of curdled it with oil or something.
He said it was blue and white paint. He said he speckled it with something.
Nice effect.
This is a burned catalpa.
That's one of the best things I've ever seen a catalpa look like.
Did he burn it to get the dark? Is that what happened?
Yeah, and then he treated this. This is all one piece, and he put some turquoise, I believe, in there. He wanted to see how the contrast of a copper would look. And this is, of course, Toby's.
Oh yeah.
No, I never don't understand how he does that without those little ears chipping right off there. But I guess it's the same as bark staying on.
Yeah, he does real well at it. Let's see if I can slide down here a bit. This was one Janet, I believe. Janet made this one. Those are all inlays.
She's really good with that. She really knows what she's doing.
And
she inlays the blank before turning. She'll inlay that.
She made an interesting point with the dots. She says that don't use end grain there because the finish will take difference. So she uses side grain, makes the plugs and puts them in. I thought it was a great tip.
What she does is she prepares the blank by inlaying all that into the flat wood and then turns the bowl into it. Very nice technique. She's really expert.
This is another one by Janet. I have to lighten some of these up. Some of these get brighter and some of them are not bright enough. So I usually, do some mild editing on them. This is that was a little bit brighter than the actual object was. And this No Good Nick brought a pen in. That's a Celtic knot pen that I did quite a few years ago. And I also
Sometime you're going to have to tell us how you do that too.
Actually, I have a jig that I use. It's in its second iteration now. It's in version 2, and maybe in version 3 someday. This was
would a laser burn that for you, Randy?
the Celtic knot.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
The way I do that is I clamp down the blank, and it's full length. I have a saw blade. I use a circular saw blade because it has a smaller kerf, and I cut it almost all the way through. Then I cut inlays to go in it. I glue the first one, I cut it and glue the first one in, let it dry, trim it so that the blank is square again, turn it 90 degrees, cut another slot in it, put another inlay in it, wait for it to dry, turn it 90 degrees. It's a process.
I've heard it described, but I'd like to see it in the video sometime. Whose is this?
This is Rick again.
Rick Atkins.
Rick was the guy that made that did the big ball with the LED lights in it.
Yeah, he comes to our club too.
So,
see, Susquehanna Club and Lancaster Club are about a 40-minute drive apart. So, we had a lot of crossover members.
this was one that Tom White did.
Oh, yeah.
Has a rather industrial look, but I found it intriguing.
That's a big fake.
That's the paradox.
The inside of it was black.
That's my favorite gesso. Gesso base with the silver coating and cut burrs and burning, stuff like that.
Why do you guys use gesso when you're doing black? I'm just asking whether I should switch to it or whatever.
Because I have a big bottle of
it. Okay.
Gives you a smooth base to work to.
Yeah, it's a very nice base. You can brush it on. You don't get brush marks. It was invented to take paint on top of it, so it's very good for taking paint on top.
Yeah, my daughter-in-law uses it to seal her canvases before she paints, but she uses white, I think. So
after you put the gesso on, do you put a clear coat over it to get shine or a certain sheen?
No, the gesso has a matte finish, and I just brushed the silver on top of it with a fingertip. Just brushed it across the grooves. The grooves are burned in with a burner and my favorite cut burrs to make it look like rivets. And it's all sort of the old metal look to it.
Yes, nice.
Tom, where do you buy your gesso?
Oh, Michael's, I think, or one of those.
Okay.
Most art stores would have it.
Yep.
Yeah.
This was one made by Carl Hildebrand. He does a lot of inlays. This is mostly acrylics and sometimes milliput.
Nice.
And so
he's got to work that design out really well before he starts.
Especially this one.
Yeah.
He said this was very difficult. He said he had to really work at it to get the proportions right. And the last one, and this is interesting because I asked him if that rock at the bottom was, what's the word I want?
Relieved?
If it was not embossed, but sticking out. And he said, yes, it is. It sticks out about 1/4 of an inch. And he did that just by pressing into the epoxy, the milliput that he was using. And he said he just used his fingers to do that. So, but that was all we had on Tuesday night. So
Good show, Randy. Thank you very much.
we did quite a bit, and it was fairly interesting.
Yeah, that's always a good topic for a meeting. The topic was embellishment and bring in your stuff, and that's what people did. And on that note, we are up to the hour. Thank you once again for your participation and attendance and attention this morning, and we'll see you all again next week.
Thank you, John.
John.
Thanks,
Take
everyone.
care, everybody.
Thanks, John.
Have
Have a
a
good
very
day.
interesting morning.
See you.
Very interesting afternoon.
Yeah, same to you.
Thank
Good
you,
day.
John, everybody.
We'll just say good day.
Yeah,
Good day. Good night.
Make sure you get your taxes done.
Wood shop. Thank God for wood.